guys, and welcome back to So Salio. Today I wanted to go through how I made the fairy garden cake. So first of all is the letters that I used to decorate the cake. I wanted to put some gum tragacanth into the fondant icing, and I'm using Renshaw's here. It makes it slightly harder when it's drying, and I use these plastic letter cutouts to cut out the style of lettering that I wanted. So roll your fondant icing out quite thinly, the thinner the better really, into strips, and then you squash it down and flick it out. It does take quite a lot of practice to get this right. It's taken me probably about 5 cakes worth of letters to get this technique. So you just squash it down, wiggle it around, make sure it's in the cut out properly, and then you really need to give it quite a hard flick. I have snapped some of these lettering things before, but it does take a while to get used to, but just practice and I'm sure you'll master it. So you can see how I'm going through all of the letters of my daughter's name that went onto the cake. You can obviously say anything you want, any name, any celebration, it doesn't really matter. But this is one of the sort of more difficult things to master with cake decorating, is getting these letters just right. It's taken me ages. So moving on to flowers. Now this is quite an easy way of doing them really. These little pushers you can just get online. They're quite easy to use. You just push them down again into fondant icing, done quite thinly. You really don't need it thick at all. It pops up, and then you just use this black pusher to push it out, which the flower then comes out of the mould at the same time, and it puts this little indent in the centre, when you can then put white fondant icing in the middle, or you can put a silver ball or any other sort of decoration to make the stem. Is it the stem? I can't remember what it's called. But as you can see, I'm making quite a number of them here, and I did them in various colours for the fairy garden cake. I also used one larger one and one smaller one to give a bit of variety. So onto the pixies or fairies or elves, whatever you want to call them. I didn't actually manage to film the actual making of these because it was quite stressful. But essentially I used one larger ball of brown fondant, it could be any colour really, and then a slightly smaller ball of kind of skin colour or whatever colour you want your fairies to be on top. And then I don't know if you can see, but there's a cocktail stick in there as well. And then I just did a round ball of fondant for the face, which is going to go on top. A tiny round ball, well, kind of more of an oval for the nose, and then I used these yellow and white tools to make sort of indents for the eyes and also to do a little smile. So here you can see I've put on some hair, which is just brown fondant rolled out, and then I've put blue in the eyes and then black pen on top. I've made little hats by rolling them into cones and then making a hole inside, and put some grass on the outside as well. The hats I did leave to dry overnight. They've got gum tragacanth in as well to make them a bit harder and to stick as they are. You can see here I actually changed the eyes over the next day because I didn't think that turquoise blue looked quite right. So I made tiny indents into the head ball, if you like, for the eyes, and used these tiny bits of white fondant rolled up and glued them into those indents using edible glue. Then I use this edible black pen. It says licorice, but I think that's just the colour. The black for the eyes, just to make them look a little bit more realistic. I will show you later on in the video exactly how I made the grass to go up the sides. I just glued all of that on really. Okay, so onto the fairy door. This is actually a teddy bear brown Renshaw's fondant, and there's a bit of green in there just to make it kind of look a bit more realistic, just a bit kind of more gardenish. And then this is a wood effect mold stamp thing, so you just squash it on. These are about £6 or £7. I think you can get them on Amazon or eBay. You literally just squash it into the fondant. It's so easy. And then just sort of make sure it's pushed down. You can see slightly on the left of mine I didn't push it in hard enough, but it doesn't really matter because my door was not going to be that thick. This white piece of paper you can see here, I actually measured onto the cake the depth of that tier to measure against the door to establish exactly how big I wanted it to be. And then I'm just using these tools and a knife to cut out the exact width and height that I want the door to be. I am cutting out around the top as well because I want it to be curved. And I didn't film this, but I also rolled up a small piece of this brown icing to go around the door, kind of like a door frame. You'll see in the thumbnail. So I'm just going around here just to smooth it off, just doing it by hand really. The thing is with the fairy garden theme, it doesn't need to be exactly perfect. I also used that yellow and white tool again to make a slight round indent and then a little purple ball, you can kind of see here, for the door handle. So then onto the grass that I used around the cake generally, but also onto those pixies. I think this is actually called grass green by Renshaw. It's the darker of the two greens they do. And I just used a tiny bit. My hands were quite warm here, and then just rolled it out, made it kind of a bit wiggly, shaped it around a little bit. It doesn't matter if it goes a bit floppy or sort of bigger at one end, and then it goes to a point. But the whole point is that they have got a bit of a wiggle to them and they look quite realistic. So I did quite a few, some longer, shorter, whatever, to use on the cake to make it look realistic. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and there are 2 more parts to this video to show you how to make the rest of the elements on the cake. So I'll see you next week. Bye.